Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Connecticut Department of Transportation and the town of Granby, I would like to welcome you all for attending this public informational meeting for State Project number 55-145, Rehabilitation of Bridge number 04525, located on Simsbury Road over the west branch of Salmon Brook. My name is Preeti Bardwaj, and I am the project manager assigned to this project. We appreciate your willingness to participate in this forum virtually, and we hope that you will find this meeting both interesting and informative. I would now like to explain some of the goals and format for tonight's meeting. I will be explaining how you will be able to interact with the project team. I will be explaining how this project is funded in the Federal Local Bridge DMS, or Design Managed by the State program. This will be followed by having some welcoming remarks by Mr. Kirk Severance, Public Works Director from the town of Granby. I will then introduce the project design team, and that includes the department's front office leadership, the department's design team, and our consultant liaison engineer team. This will then be followed with a technical portion of the design, which will include the condition of the existing structure, the purpose and need for the project, and the recommended design solution, which has progressed to a 30% design completion. As part of the department's public outreach program, it is at this point now that we are reaching out to you, the public, while it is still early in the design process, to receive any comments and concerns and answer any questions that you may also have. We also will be explaining the rights-of-way process. And lastly, we will have a live question and answer session. I will now explain how you will be able to interact with the project team. There are three means of how you will be able to communicate. The first is by email, which is dot/flbp@ct.gov. And I will also spell that out. It is dot/flbp@ct.gov. You can also phone in, and the phone number is 860-944-1111. Again, that phone number is 860-944-1111. Or you can also use the chat function on the MS Teams live event chat. In this format, you can ask a question by clicking on the little question mark, which shows Q&A. This will bring up your live Q&A field. Select the Ask a Question button at the bottom right screen and a field will pop up. And you can type your question and hit either Enter with a little arrow button to send, or you can also check the box on the bottom to post your question anonymously if you prefer. There will be a slight delay, but eventually your question will appear in the featured section with all other questions that are asked tonight. The project email, phone, and chat will be screened by the project team during the Q&A session, and the questions asked by any of these methods will be posted to the MS Teams Q&A chat window. The question will then be asked out loud for the project team to answer. You can ask questions at any time during the presentation, but we will answer these questions during the live Q&A session that follows. We also have a project webpage link where the recording of tonight's entire presentation, including the Q&A session, will be stored. The webpage will also contain the same information that I have previously explained on how to provide comments and ask questions. And that project webpage is portal.ct.gov/DOT Granby 55-145. And I will also spell that out. It is portal.ct.gov DOTGRANBY 55-145. And lastly, please remember that the comment period to ask questions or provide comments will be open through October 12th, 2021. So if you think of a question after tonight's meeting or want to expand on a question asked tonight, you will have until October 12th to do so. The MS Teams chat function is only available during tonight's live Q&A session. We would greatly appreciate it if you could fill out a brief survey that the department has through SurveyMonkey. The virtual public informational meeting platform is still a relatively new one for the department, and this survey will help the department improve these public meetings going forward. There's also a civil rights flyer available. Both the links to the survey and civil rights flyer are located on the previously mentioned project webpage. And lastly, I am required to read the following statement as part of the Title VI Civil Rights Act, and that is, no person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. I will now like to explain how the project is being funded. This bridge is a town-owned bridge and is being funded under the department's Federal Local Bridge Program. Traditionally in this program, the town selects a designer, and because federal funds are involved, the department provides administrative oversight because the department is considered to be stewards of those federal funds. The funding is traditionally 80% federal and 20% town for the design, rights-of-way, and construction phases of the project. However, this project is going to be funded under the department's newly launched DMS, or Design Managed by the State program. In this program, it will be the department who will be performing the design on behalf of the municipality, utilizing our consultant liaison engineers who are Clough Harbor Associates, or CHA, on this project. CHA has completed the 30% preliminary design, and it will be brought to final design completion by one of our pre-selected task-based designers. In addition, the design phase only will now be funded with 80% federal and 20% state funds, so the entire design phase is at zero cost to the town of Granby. Although the 30% preliminary design was performed by the department, it was in full partnership and coordination with the town of Granby. We held several meetings with the town and diligently worked together to incorporate most of the town's comments and concerns. And now we are reaching out to you, the community, to also weigh in. The initiative behind the DMS program was to expedite design delivery for municipal projects. The DMS program uses a streamlined design approach where we are able to utilize full departmental resources and are able to internally perform design tasks concurrently rather than linearly. In this program, we are able to cut down the typical design time by a half and bring these projects to construction quicker, which is enabling the department's perennial goal of keeping our town bridges in a state of good repair. The department is pleased to be able to offer this program to the town of Granby. The DMS program is spending your municipal and state tax dollars efficiently and effectively, and at the same time fostering great working relationships with our municipal counterparts. And now I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Kirk Severance, Public Works Director from the town of Granby.
Thank you, Preeti. As previously stated, my name is Kirk Severance and I am the Public Works Director for the town of Granby. The Connecticut DOT performed safety inspections for all bridges over 20 feet in length at 2-year intervals. It was determined that the Simsbury Road Bridge was one of the bridges in town needing repairs. We knew that the bridge needed to be rehabilitated, and we are looking for the most efficient way to proceed and stay within the guidelines of the allocated bond money. Traditionally, the town would have selected and hired a consultant to develop the design, and they would have been responsible for navigating through the design process, with the town covering 20% of the design costs. As mentioned, when the Department of Transportation offered the DMS program to the town, we felt it was absolutely the way to go for the town, since the state has pre-selected consultants with the knowledge of the design process. This would result in both early completion of the design and construction, and not to mention the cost savings. We started meeting with the state in July of 2019 to get an understanding of how the program worked and how it may benefit the town. After several more meetings with the state, the town recognized that this program would be a good joint effort and agreed to go forward with it. While the design efforts have been led by the state, they have kept us in the loop on all aspects of the project, including providing us with various technical alternatives, as well as their pros and cons and recommendations. They have also informed us that it is the town that will be making the final decision on all aspects. Simsbury Road Bridge is the third bridge replacement that we are working on under this program, and I am happy to say that the process has gone very well. So thanks to the department for truly partnering with us on fixing the town's infrastructure. Thank you.
I would now like to introduce the project team. I am Preeti Bardwaj, the project manager shown on the far right. To my left are the department's front office leadership, which includes Mr. Bart Sweeney, Division Chief of Bridges, and Mr. Louis Bacho, Principal Engineer. We also have present Mr. James Barrows, Project Engineer, and the consultant liaison engineers who are assigned to this project are Clough Harbor Associates. From Clough Harbor Associates, we have Mr. Anand Shazadri, Project Manager, and Ms. Tracy Brace, Project Engineer. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally ready to present our technical portion of the presentation, and you will be hearing a lot of bridge lingo throughout the presentation. Therefore, I am about to give you a 2-minute crash course on some of the structural elements on a bridge and the numerical condition rating system assigned on a bridge. On the diagram shown, the deck is the riding surface of the bridge. The parapets, or sometimes bridges can also have an open rail system, help prevent errant vehicles from going off the bridge. The beams, or the girders, are the supporting structural elements on the bridge and are designed to support vehicular loads, the self-weight of the bridge, and any environmental loads such as wind, seismic, etc. The parapets, the deck, and the beams or the girders are what makes up the superstructure of a bridge. The abutments and wing walls are the end supports on a bridge. And the piers, if there are any, are the intermediate supports. The abutments and wing walls, as well as the piers, make up what is known as the substructure of a bridge. The substructure not only supports the superstructure, but also helps in transmitting loads from the superstructure down to the bridge foundations. All state bridges and town bridges over 20 feet in length are inspected every 2 years by the department's Bridge Safety and Evaluation Unit and are assigned a condition rating on the major structural elements on a scale of 1 through 9, with 9 being excellent condition and 1 being imminent failure condition. When a major bridge element reaches a 4 or poor condition, that is when we start to initiate a project to address these structural deficiencies. Now that you are armed with basic bridge knowledge, I would now like to introduce Ms. Tracy Brace from CHA, who will be presenting the technical portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Pretty. Good evening, everyone. I will be going through some of the specifics of the current condition of bridge number 4525, which carries Simsbury Road over the west branch of the Salmon Brook. I will also present the proposed work under project 55-145, which has been initiated to rehabilitate bridge number 4525. Bridge 4525 is located here and carries Simsbury Road, which runs in the north-south direction, over the west branch of the Salmon Brook, which flows generally from the northwest to the southeast. The bridge is located within the West Granby Historic District. However, the bridge is not eligible for an individual historic listing, nor is it considered to be a contributing element to the historic district. The property at the northwest corner is owned by the Salmon Brook Historical Society. The property to the east of the bridge is owned by the Granby Land Trust. Simsbury Road in this area is primarily farmland and residential. There is one residential street, Holcomb Hill Road, located just north of the bridge. The bridge was constructed in 1956 and carries an average of 1,422 vehicles per day. The bridge has a lane of traffic in each direction, northbound and southbound on Simsbury Road. The curb-to-curb width is 22 feet. The bridge consists of two spans, span 1 and span 2, each with a span length of 50 feet 10 inches. And the spans are supported by abutments, south abutment here, the north abutment here, and a pier wall in the center. On the west side of the bridge, there are overhead utilities. Again, the bridge provides a 22-foot wide roadway, and the superstructure consists of 5 pre-stressed concrete I-beams that support a reinforced concrete slab deck that's topped with a bituminous concrete wearing surface. On both sides of the roadway, there are bridge rails that consist of steel H-beams and 2 wire cables. This type of bridge rail does not meet current safety standards. The existing bridge has a total length of 111 feet, made up of the 2 spans that are of equal span length. Each span is supported by a reinforced concrete abutment and a reinforced concrete pier wall. These 3 elements make up the substructure and are built on spread footings that are founded on rock. Because it's founded on rock, scour is not a concern at this site. As for the hydraulic design, for the design storm, which is the 100-year storm event, there is no underclearance and no freeboard on this bridge. As Pretty mentioned previously, during the biennial inspections, the bridge inspectors determine condition ratings for each of the major elements of the bridge. Based on the inspection performed on this bridge in 2019, the deck is considered to be in fair condition. The superstructure is in good condition, meaning there are minor deficiencies noted. The substructure is in fair condition, the approach is in very good condition, and the channel and channel protection is in fair condition. The inspectors also look at other elements of the bridge, such as roadway alignment and deck geometry. And on this bridge, the deck geometry is considered to be substandard due to insufficient roadway width. Because the deck geometry is substandard, the bridge is considered to be functionally obsolete. So to get you acquainted with the existing conditions of the bridge, here are some photos of the bridge. This photo on the left is the west elevation, or the upstream side of the bridge. You can see here the two spans. The Salmon Brook primarily flows under this span, span 1. And on this side, there is a lot of sand that's built up and vegetation, mostly blocking off water from flowing under span 2. This photo shows the east elevation, or the downstream side of the bridge. Down here on the bottom left is the north approach looking south over the bridge. And here are utility poles and overhead wires located just west of the bridge. This photo on the bottom right is the south approach looking north over the bridge. Something to note, the approach rail consists of timber posts and 2 cable wires attached to the posts. And this type of system does not meet current safety standards. In this photo, you can see the condition of the overlay. It's in pretty good condition. It was recently repaved. And here is the bridge rail system, which, as I mentioned previously, does not meet current safety standards. This photo on the right shows a typical of the underside of the bridge. These are the concrete I-beams that were mentioned. And then there are concrete diaphragms in between. Now between those I-beams on the underside of the deck, there is dampness and longitudinal cracks with efflorescence, which is this white stuff here. At the ends of the concrete I-beams, the pre-stressing strands, which are these circles here, are exposed and they are rusted. Here you can see a typical photo of the conditions of the abutments. In this photo, it is the south abutment that's shown. There's some minor scale closer to the water line, but otherwise minimal deterioration on the stem portion here. The reason why the substructure is considered to be in fair condition is primarily due to the concrete bearing pads shown here, which have large spalls or hollow areas. And in some cases, the concrete's so deteriorated that it is undermining the steel bearings here. And that's a condition that's found at the abutments as well as at the pier. In this photo here, you can see the upstream channel from the bridge, which is well vegetated. In this photo, you can see the aggregation in the channel under span 2. So during most instances, the Salmon Brook is flowing under span 1 only. So the primary purpose of this project is to address the functional obsolescence of the bridge, which is due to inadequate roadway width on the bridge. The existing curb-to-curb width is 22 feet. Per state and federal standards, a minimum curb-to-curb width of 24 feet is required based on the number of vehicles that travel over the bridge each day. In this case, about 1,400 vehicles. Per town of Granby standards, a curb-to-curb width of 28 feet is required for new local roads with over 60 lots. Since Simsbury Road was built prior to this town roadway standard being established, and no major reconstruction of the road is proposed under this project, less than 28 feet is acceptable. In addition, the bridge and approach rail systems do not meet current safety standards and need to be upgraded. Lastly, the bridge is 65 years old, and based on the biennial inspection, there are some deficiencies that need to be addressed to extend the service life of the bridge. Some of these items are the rusted pre-stressing strands in the I-beams and the concrete deterioration in the substructure, especially at the concrete pads under the bearings. So the proposed improvements under this project include a superstructure replacement with galvanized steel beams, similar to those shown in the picture here. The beams would support a reinforced concrete deck, which is topped with a bituminous concrete overlay. The new superstructure would provide a 24-foot wide roadway, so it would meet state and federal design standards. In addition, new crash-tested bridge rail will be installed on both sides of the roadway. Also included in this project are concrete substructure repairs to address deficiencies noted in the inspection report. And then with this new superstructure, there are some marginal hydraulic improvements because the superstructure depth is a little shallower than the existing one. So we are able to raise the low chord a little bit to help water pass under the bridge. So here is the proposed cross section for the new superstructure. As I mentioned, it'll consist of steel girders that will support a reinforced concrete deck and a bituminous overlay on top. The steel girders will be galvanized, and this is to help prevent corrosion and to minimize future maintenance on the bridge. The curb-to-curb width will be 24 feet to meet state and federal standards. And then new curb-mounted open bridge rail will be installed at both sides of the roadway. And here's the general plan and the elevation of the proposed bridge. The orange represents the new superstructure. The yellow represents the proposed roadway reconstruction. And then the gray represents the existing bridge substructure that is to remain, but is to be repaired. Green represents the proposed fill limits. Because the bridge is going to be widened slightly to provide 24 feet curb to curb, the approaches also need to be widened slightly to meet that. So the embankments need to be regraded slightly, and these are the limits of the fill slope. The pink represents the limits of the approach guide rail that's to be installed, and this new approach guide rail will meet current safety standards. The red represents the town's right-of-way on both sides. As you can see, most of the work will occur within the town's right-of-way. There is a portion of the existing wing wall that's already outside of the town right-of-way, and then some fill limits go right beyond that right-of-way as well. The overhead utilities that are located on the west side can remain in place. They do not need to be relocated to perform this work. One of the benefits with this new superstructure type is that the steel beams can be continuous over the pier. And with it being continuous, the superstructure can be a little bit shallower, which will help with the hydraulic design slightly. And also, we're able to make the concrete deck continuous over the pier, eliminating a deck joint. So that eliminates the possibility of water coming through the joint and deteriorating the beams underneath. Based on our coordination with the town, there are certain aesthetic details that will be incorporated in this project, one of which is the open bridge rail system that will be metallized to the color of the town's choice. Most likely it will be black like the railing shown here. Then the concrete end block at the end of the bridge rail will be built with a form liner that replicates the pattern of the town's choice. The town would like a cobblestone pattern similar to the one in this photo. So here's the roadway profile that's proposed under this project. We're proposing to maintain the existing roadway profile to minimize the extent of the approach roadway reconstruction on both sides. And then, as I mentioned, with the use of continuous steel beams, the superstructure depth is slightly shallower than the existing. So we're able to raise the low chord slightly to help pass the 100-year storm better. More water can flow underneath the bridge. On this slide, we have the proposed roadway plan. The orange represents the limits of the bridge superstructure replacement. The darker blue represents the limits of the watercourse, and the lighter blue represents the wetland limits. The yellow on both sides of the bridge represents the proposed roadway reconstruction. At the south side of the bridge, approximately 115 feet will be reconstructed, and at the north side, approximately 180 feet will be reconstructed. The green and brown represent the fill and cut limits, respectively, associated with the construction of the slightly wider roadway within the project limits. The light gray on both sides represents existing roadway, which will not be altered as part of this project. To complete construction, the proposed maintenance and protection of traffic involves a full bridge closure with a detour of traffic. This method is proposed because it is far safer for the contractor and workers, as well as for residents and commuters. With stage construction, the contractor is operating equipment very close to the travel lane, whereas with the full bridge closure, the contractor has the full roadway width, and we don't have to worry about adjacent vehicles being so close to equipment that's moving around. The detour is proposed to be in place for approximately 7 months, or one construction season, which typically occurs from April through November. The detour route is 6.9 miles long and uses Simsbury Road, Barn Door Hill Road, Route 20, and West Granby Road. So as I mentioned previously, the overhead utilities that are located to the west of the bridge can remain in place throughout construction, so there are no utility impacts associated with this project. As for environmental impacts, some tree clearing will be necessary on the side of the road to perform the work, but otherwise minimal temporary wetland and watercourse impacts are anticipated. And this is another benefit of the proposed full bridge closure and detour of traffic. The contractor can perform most of the work from the roadway and therefore doesn't need to drive equipment into the watercourse or the wetlands. So we're anticipating for permits that we'll need a Town of Granby Inland Wetlands permit, flood management certification, an MOU, and a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit, either the self-verification or a pre-construction notification permit. As for right-of-way impacts, we generally have very few associated with the proposed project. Most of the work can be performed within the town's right-of-way. There is that portion of the existing northeast wing wall that's located outside of the town's right-of-way. It's within the limits of the Granby Land Trust property. So a small partial take is proposed to keep that wing wall within the town's right-of-way so that in the future they can access it to maintain it if need be. So I'm going to turn it over now to Dennis McDonald from the department's Division of Rights-of-Way, and he'll describe a little more in depth the right-of-way process.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis McDonald, and I'm a representative from the Connecticut Department of Transportation, Division of Rights-of-Way. I'm just going to provide a brief overview of the right-of-way process. So the function of the Division of Rights-of-Way is to acquire all property and property rights necessary for the project. This is done in accordance with Connecticut General Statute Section 13A73, 13A90AE, and the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970 as amended. Your typical right-of-way impacts include partial acquisitions, easements, and rights. Impacts are subject to change as the design progresses, but this gives a general idea of typical property impacts. Once property impacts have been established, each impacted property owner will receive a letter of intent to acquire along with a property acquisition map. The letter essentially initiates the right-of-way process, and the map provides a detailed overview of the specific right-of-way impacts. Soon after the letter is received, evaluation process will take place, and once a value has been established, each impacted property owner will receive a written offer of compensation. Property owners will be given time to consider the offer and negotiate should they wish. If an agreement is reached, an acceptance document will be signed, and a closing will take place at a later date. If an agreement is not reached for whatever reason, the state will utilize its power of eminent domain and acquire the property rights through the condemnation process. Now, I understand this has a negative connotation, but many times this is done to keep a project on schedule. If the state elects to pursue eminent domain, the original offer is deposited in the court system, and property owners can continue negotiations or file a formal appeal for a reassessment of damages through the court system. Please note all appeals must be filed within 6 months from the date in which the state files for eminent domain. And that is all I have for tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dennis, for the summary of the right-of-way process. So I'm assuming we get approved environmental permits and all right-of-way acquisitions in time, construction is anticipated to start in spring 2024. And again, it is anticipated to take 7 months, or one construction season, meaning April through November. The estimated construction cost at this point is $2,120,000. The construction cost will be covered using 80% federal funds and 20% town funds.
Thank you, Tracy, and that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our technical portion of the presentation. I would like to thank everyone on my design team and everyone behind the scenes who helped put this live event together. We are going to leave the Q&A session information on the screen for your benefit, and we will be answering any questions that came in during the presentation and answer any questions that will come in during this live Q&A session. Once again, we would like to remind everyone to please visit the project webpage to participate in the survey pertaining to tonight's event or ask additional questions or view project plans and information. For those of you listening on the phone, that project webpage link is again portal.ct.gov/DOT Granby 55-145. So with that, we are now going to start the live question and answer session. We will take as many questions as we can. Feel free to use that chat feature or call in by phone. That phone number is again 860-944-1111 or by email. The address is again dot.flbp@ct.gov. The comment period it's open again till October 12th, 2021.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we did get a couple of questions. All right, and I am going to start reading the first question that we got. The first question that we have is, where will the contractor place his equipment? Can I have Tracy or Anand from CHA please take this question?
Hi, this is Anand from CHA. So we anticipate that the contractor will be utilizing both the approaches to the bridge, both on the north and the south sides, to essentially keep his equipment, which will, most likely be a crane that he will need to remove the existing beams and to install new beams. But again, mostly work from the two approaches to the bridge.
Okay, thank you, Anand. Next question. When is construction anticipated to start? Tracy from CHA, would you like to take this question?
Sure. Based on the current project schedule, construction is anticipated to start in spring 2024. Again, this is subject to change. It's dependent on when we get permit approval as well as right-of-way acquisitions.
Okay, thank you very much, Tracy. Next question. How long will construction take? Can it be expedited? Tracy from CHA, can you please take this question?
Sure. Currently we anticipate that construction will take one season, approximately 7 months, starting in April and ending in November. And this is using conventional construction methods. So there may be an opportunity for the contractor to do different operations at the same time and shorten the duration of construction slightly. One of the benefits of having the road closed and traffic detoured is that he will have full use of the approaches to set up equipment, and that can also help reduce the time for construction.
This is Anand from CHA, and just to add to Tracy's answer, we did look at the use of prefabricated elements to expedite the bridge construction, but unfortunately, on this particular bridge, we have a large skew, and we have the presence of flared wing walls. So geometrically, it's not ideal for use of prefabricated elements. And even if we use them, there are certain risks associated with it, and we still need to end up with some cast-in-place construction. So that's one of the reasons why we did consider prefabricated units, but did not recommend it for the site.
Okay, thank you very much, Tracy and Anand. Next question. How will fire, EMS, mail, school bus routes be impacted? Would CHA first like to take this question? And if the town would also like to add anything further to their answer, they're welcome to do so as well.
Sure. So one of the things we are going to do during the design phase of the project is make sure that we are coordinating with all the emergency units and emergency services so that they are well aware of the detour route, the actual time of construction, so that they can sort of plan ahead for the game. And then Kirk, if you could add the town's perspective.
Yeah, certainly. We have been working all the way through all three of the bridges with fire, police, and ambulance, and they are well aware of what we're going to need to do. And even prior to construction, we'll have another meeting to make sure all efforts are coordinated. And the Board of Ed is also included.
Okay, thank you very much, Anand and Kirk. We have another question. What aesthetic treatments are being considered? Tracy from CHA, would you like to take this question?
Sure. As I mentioned in the presentation, thank you for bringing up those slides. We're proposing an open bridge rail similar to the one that's shown in the top photo here. It'll be metallized, which gives the steel a color while also providing better protection of the steel versus like just painting it because often just painting it chips and deteriorates pretty quickly. So the railing is proposed to have a black color like this, based on our previous discussions with the town of Granby. And then going down to the next photo towards the bottom, the end blocks, which will be made of concrete, will be formed to have this pattern that replicates, you know, the texture or pattern of the town's choice. And again, based on our conversations with the town, they'd like a cobblestone pattern similar to the one shown in this photo here on the screen.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question. Given that 100-year floods are occurring more frequently as a result of the climate crisis, would it be prudent to design the bridge to be raised a few inches to make it less likely that it will be overwhelmed by a Salmon Brook flood? Can I have Anand from CHA please take this question?
So during our engineering phase, we did look at that. But just before that, I would like to mention that as part of this replacement, the superstructure replacement that we have proposed, we are going to be marginally improving the hydraulics. And that's because since we're using a continuous steel beam, we are able to reduce the depth of the structure, and so we are able to increase or raise the low chord, which marginally improves the hydraulics. Now, we also looked at the fact as to what it would take to meet the 100-year storm requirements. And unfortunately, the requirement is to raise the bridge by over a foot. And which, again, even if we do it on the bridge, the impacts to the roadway approaches are significant, and then that leads to other secondary impacts such as, you know, rights of way, etc. And so we did not proceed further on that. Again, one other thing is the focus of this program has generally been to take care of the deficiency of the bridge, and so that was sort of the primary focus of this bridge project.
Yes, thank you, Anand. And I would also like to reiterate that the federal local bridge program, especially the type of funding that we get for this program, these are more funds that we get for spot improvements for a bridge. So as Anand stated, it would likely require a lot more rights of way impacts, as well as a lot more work outside of the bridge, which this program is really not intended for. So that's primarily the reason for doing that. Okay, we have another question. Will the finished bridge be safe for bike riders and pedestrians? Will there be a bike and pedestrian corridor? I guess, Anand, if you want to start and answer it, and maybe if the town has anything else to add to that, they're welcome to do so.
Sure. So again, this is Anand from CHA. Compared to the existing bridge curb to curb width, which is about 22 feet, we are widening the bridge by 2 feet, and so to 24 feet. And so this will, you know, slightly improve the passage through the corridor. We did not specifically design the roadway or the width to accommodate pedestrians, because one, that would also mean more significant widening of the bridge, the substructures, environmental impacts, right-of-way impacts, etc. So sort of focused on you know, what we require, what is required to meet both federal and state guidelines on the roadway. But it would seem that we are widening the roadway by a couple of feet, and so it would definitely be a little more safer than what it is today.
All right, next question. Thanks. What about raising it 4 inches or 6 inches, etc.? And I think this is a tag on to the previously answered question about the 100-year flood. You want to add anything else? Sure.
Right. So I just want to reiterate that we are improving the hydraulic performance of the bridge proposed versus what it is today. Again, we try to do a fine balance between what we can do with the project and what impacts we will have as a result. So there are certain components of the bridge, like the concrete deck, that needs to be thicker than what it was in the existing condition. And so by trying to keep the profile, maintaining it to where it is today, and reducing the depth of the steel beam, we are able to accomplish that marginal improvement in hydraulics. And again, all of this was sort of selected, trying to balance what we can do on the bridge and the secondary impacts of the bridge. But we can, yeah, I mean, there are always options to increase the profile, but the impacts of it can sometimes add up.
Okay, thank you, Anand. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't look like we're having any more questions right now. I'll give it another couple of minutes. So please don't hesitate to call in. Again, if you have any questions, you can phone in as well. The number is 860-944-1111, or you can email us at dot-flbp@ct.gov. Or again, feel free to use that chat function on Teams. And while we are waiting for questions, I would like to remind everyone again that this whole presentation, including the Q&A session, will be recorded and will be posted to YouTube following this event. The recording will also be made available on the link shown on the project webpage. And that webpage link again is portal.ct.gov/DOT Granby 55-145. Okay, looks like we have another question that came in. Will the heavy equipment and machinery, including dump trucks and earth movers, be traveling to the site from the north of the bridge or south of the bridge? CHA, Anand, would you please take this question?
I think this would solely sort of depend on the contractor and his means and methods of where he's procuring his material from. There are access points from the north and the south, so I think contractor may use both for certain things. So it's totally, it would sort of totally depend on the contract.
Thank you, Anand. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll give it another minute or so and see if we get more questions. Okay, looks like we are no longer receiving any more questions, so I'm going to take this opportunity to start wrapping up. I would like to encourage you to take the survey. The link is shown on the Teams chat box, or for those of you watching on YouTube, the survey is below the video. This would really help us improve the virtual meeting experience in the future. And also please remember that the comment period is open until October 12th of this year. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the department and the town of Granby, we would like to thank you for joining us tonight. We hope you found this meeting informative and we were able to answer all of your questions. All of us on the design team and the town of Granby are always available to answer any questions, even outside of the comment period. We are also available to meet with you individually on the project site if you so desire. Thank you once again and have a wonderful evening.